Guardiola's tactics are evolving once again. He's got 3 brand new systems that could keep City one step ahead. I'm going to be explaining how this system changes their build-up, why this tactic could fix Pep's biggest problem from last season, and how his really surprising new plan for a winger could see him explode this season. So, what exactly are Pep's new tactics, and what do they mean for Manchester City's new signings? Because a few boys have come through the door. In Man City's first Club World Cup match, we saw an instant change to Pep's shape and approach to the game, specifically with new signing Reijnders, who brings a brand new skill set to Pep's build-up, by the way. In this example, Reijnders is the first receiver in build-up, picking it up in his own 6-yard box with the central defenders split. Reijnders brings the ball out, which triggers the opposition's press. From there, he lays it off to the wide central defender, but he continues his run into the space he created behind the first line of pressure, and now he's got acres of space to drive forward into. And so in comparison to Gundogan and Kovacic, Reijnders averaged far more progressive carries and carries into the penalty area last season. Here is a great example of him progressing the ball from deep. He collects it in a congested area, flicks it over 2 defenders, carries the ball into the box and gets a shot off. He is just such a Pep player. Grace, elegance, intelligence, you can see it after a couple of minutes. Pep has put a clear emphasis for me on adding ball carriers into this new tactics and adding the ability to take players out of the game when under man-for-man pressure. And Reijnders' heat map shows us exactly this, his versatility to operate at all depths of the midfield. He's able to drop deep, as we've already seen, and he's got the quality to operate in those tight spaces between the lines as well. As well as Reijnders, we also saw Pep experiment with a new role for his striker. Despite Rayan Cherki starting as the number 9, his position was far from fixed. Looking at Churkey here, he's dropped so deep that he's between the 2 holding midfielders. It's in this area that he can play short passes and link up centrally, and now he's really wide on the right, roaming outside of the opposition block to get touches on the ball. And whilst replacing Kevin De Bruyne is obviously no easy task, Rayan Cherki averaged more progressive passes, key passes and expected assists last season. And in the Club World Cup, yes, of course they got knocked out, but he played a very De Bruyne-esque pass to assist Thogden. And the other thing, of course, that's crucial throughout this video, Churkey also brings even more carrying quality into central zones. Here is a fun example of his dribbling and flair as well. So Churkey lures both defenders towards him before putting it through one of the defenders' legs to get himself out of trouble. And in comparison to De Bruyne, he actually averaged nearly double the amount of progressive carries, as well as nearly 5 times the amount of take-ons per 90. And so when comparing their heat maps, you can see both like to operate primarily in the half spaces last season, and the technical ability and positional versatility of Reijnders and Churkey, it just allows for more fluid rotations amongst the midfielders and the fullbacks, making it tougher for the opposition to easily mark them. This is clearly something that Guardiola is so much more open to implementing this season, adding profiles who can operate multiple zones. It makes it easier for those rotations to take place. You have to have the ability to stretch in behind, you have to have the ability to stretch with width by switching it from side to side, but you also need to essentially whisk the inside of that mid block or that low block. Teams are so drilled now, so you need that fluidity of rotation. However, there is a key issue that remains, which Pep Guardiola or Pep Linders will need to fix, and Pep Linders might be the guy that's actually creating the issue. So here we see City's rest defense, and it's a really aggressive 2-3 base, ready to counter press to sustain that pressure. But this setup leaves them so exposed in transition, especially behind the fullbacks. In this example, Doku loses the ball as Aït-Nouri overlaps, and with Gundogan pushed really high as well, only Reijnders and Núñez are left to cover those half spaces in transition. And as the play unfolds, you can see that City's pressed, it lacks cohesion. Reijnders then is forced to cover for Aït-Nouri, leaving the centre of the pitch so open for Al Hilal to attack and play line-breaking passes. It's about the timing and the intensity of that counter press. And if it's not spot on, essentially one good pass into the right space, it can slice through and exploit the space that Guardiola is clearly experimenting with, likely influenced, as I said, by Pep Linders' arrival, who was assistant to Klopp at Liverpool, and he's written a book called Intensity. Now, inevitably, those principles are going to take time to bed in, and that's where one of Guardiola's alternative systems can offer a cracking solution. More on that a little bit later, because I want to talk about a huge factor in making the level of fluidity work, because it often comes back down to your fullback profiles, which is why Aït-Nouri could be even more important than you might think. So this is Pep's second tactic, seen in the second Club World Cup game, and in this one it was a 3-1-6 shape, and he opts to use his fullbacks high and wide with Aït-Nouri and Núñez starting in these positions. It'd be interesting to see if he is able to get Livramento or is able to buy a right fullback, because you wonder with the balance. But with this new system that Guardiola's putting in place, maybe Núñez has got a real future here. We did see Guardiola experiment with high and wide fullbacks occasionally last season, leading to Marmoush being closer to Haaland, almost as that second striker. Their heat maps show you how they held the width to support the inside forwards. But as good as Guardiola and O'Reilly were as left wing backs, they may be not quite there when it comes to having the full skill set that Guardiola demands out wide, but Rayan Cherki certainly does. And here's an example of him operating high and wide for City. So with him receiving outside, he will often have the chance to go 1v1 with the defender and attempt to create a good chance with a cross. Aït-Nouri's got that ability to attack his man like a winger does, and he's got good tight ball manipulation skills. It sounds naughty, doesn't it? He's nice in tight spaces. Leave it. In this one-on-one, he fakes a run towards the byline before chopping back inside to beat his man, opening up the angle for a lovely drilled cross into the box where 4 players are waiting centrally. Something Guardiola will have to be careful of, though, is the space that he could leave in transition, because he is going to bomb forward. This is an example against Juventus, and it shows a similar 2-3 rest defense shape, but the profiles feel a little bit laboured, with player positioning being kind of suboptimal here. So a key detail for Pep will be Aït-Nouri's positioning based on which side the ball is on in order to protect those large spaces in transition. This example shows a loose pass from Aït-Nouri, who works back quickly to stop a break before using a silky bit of skill to put it through the defender's legs and restart the attack. He continues his run. It's great stuff, showing energy, dynamism, and that's something that City consistently lacked last season. And the final ball Aït-Nouri provides, which creates big chances like this, is something that we're going to touch on in a second, and why this goal is so significant. More on that in just a second, but Aït-Nouri, he averaged more passes and crosses into the penalty area than both of City's left-backs last season. And those out-of-possession concerns can also be nullified further with Guardiola's third system, which sees Reijnders alongside Rodri, with Aït-Nouri still providing that width. Now, this shape, it allows for more mobile midfielders to cover the half spaces in transition, while still having hard-working fullbacks ready to track back and cover the ground, and a bit more of a central base to cover those central transitions as well. And the key difference to this tactic is how Aït-Nouri could unleash Jeremy Doku. What I have thought about with Jeremy Doku is that he's just a little bit predictable when he's out wide. And if you have a look at his heat map from last season, he's often right next to the touchline, waiting for the ball, squaring up the fullbacks, carrying the ball forwards towards the byline. But this is the difference. Pep has Doku in a more central role in this system, and it gives him a more direct route to goal when carrying the ball. He picks up the ball deep, he bursts into space, and he wins a foul. In terms of his ability to move the opposition without the ball, that is where it's horrible. If you're a defender, you've got him in front of you and you don't know if he's going to go inside or outside, that's grim. This role does not limit Doku to the inside channel either. He still has that freedom to drift wide, and Aït-Nouri can interchange, and he can then step into that half space because he is comfortable on the inside as well. Here's an example of this duo working perfectly together. Fullback makes an overlapping run for Doku, allowing him to do his signature wiggle, cutting inside and driving centrally. Doku creates his own space and he gets a strike on goal. Can his strikes be better? That's somewhere where he can definitely improve, I think. But incredibly, he averaged the most progressive carries into the penalty area, and successful take-ons per 90 last season in the Premier League. By giving him that freedom to go inside as well as outside, it makes this whole Man City side so much less predictable. This system creates deep overloads to attract pressure, leading to larger spaces to go direct into the front three. And when you give Doku those large spaces, he can be so dangerous. Here's that Aït-Nouri pass from earlier, right? It leads to Doku in the box. He shifted inside and he finished. This dynamic duo is going to be one to watch this season for me. And it could even lead to the winger's best ever season for goals and assists, because he's going to be nearer the goal. You think Pep's tactics look good? Well, wait until you see what Arne Slot is cooking up. Click here to watch.